our number 5 story tonight, they are older, they are whiter than America, and they earn more money and are better educated. That's right. The Tea Party is made up of elite, well-off intellectuals of sorts who are out of step with the real America, and they are very deeply confused. 84% of them think their movement reflects the view of most Americans, but 73% of them are conservative, while only 35% of the real America is. 92% want smaller government with fewer services, which only 50% of the real America want. 39% of real America correctly blames President Bush for most of the deficit. 6% of Tea Partiers do. Half of the real America wants government spending to create jobs, which only 17% of Tea Partiers want. And while only 19% of the real America call themselves angry at Washington, more than half of Tea Partiers do, which brings us neatly to today's Tea Party rally on the Capitol.
Hey, you look happy to me. You don't look angry. That's because you get it, and you are smart enough to get off your couch and do something about it. So this November, what do you say? Let's take back our country. How many of you think we're going to do it? I know we're going to do it. I know it. It is all about this coming November. We have to take the House, then the Senate, and 2 years from now, Barack Obama is a one-term president.
More on the Tea Partiers. They are more likely to be college grads. 14% have some fancy postgraduate degree versus just 10% of real America and 0% of tonight's Countdown hosts. 56% made more than $50,000 last year compared to just 44% of the real America, which might explain why 80% of them oppose a health care income tax for people making over $200,000. Tea Party icon Sarah Palin yesterday cited the American Tax Foundation's calculation that Americans worked 99 days this year to pay their taxes, but the foundation actually noted how low that number is and credited Obama tax cuts. No wonder, even though 64% of Tea Partiers think President Obama raised taxes, 52% of them think their own tax rate is fair. But 73% of them believe government benefits encourage the poor to remain poor, which might explain a theme at today's rally.
Nor do we believe in a government that confiscates our earnings and rewards people that don't earn and eats out our substance and drains American vitality. That's what's going on in America today.
One Tea Partier in the poll called their political views a conundrum. Maybe I don't want smaller government, she said. I guess I want smaller government and my Social Security. I didn't look at it from the perspective of losing things I need. I think I've changed my mind. Let's turn now to Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist David Cay Johnston, author of Free Lunch: How the Wealthiest Americans Enrich Themselves at Government Expense and Stick You with the Bill. And he's now a columnist for the trade journal Tax Notes. David, Sarah Palin is complaining. She's complaining today that 47% of households pay no federal income tax. What is she getting at with that as a complaint? Isn't that something she should be celebrating?
I would think that tax cuts promoted by President Obama would be popular with her. About 1 in 7 Americans who paid taxes the last year George Bush was in office didn't pay taxes last year and won't this year because of President Obama's 2-year tax cut. So, yes, you would think she'd be in favor of that. And by the way, where is Sarah Palin about people who make billion-dollar incomes and are allowed to pay 0 taxes under our tax code?
Well, it seems, David, that her problem is that the 47% of the households that she says are not paying federal income tax are shifting the burden to those taxpayers you just mentioned, and that they are now overburdened. The top-end earners in this country are overburdened in our tax code. Having looked at the big picture, do you see it that way?
Not at all. In fact, the tax burden of those Americans rises, but once you get to the plutocrat group, the $10 million year up group, and we have people who are making $3 and $4 billion incomes year after year now in this country, and they pay less tax than Americans making $500 a week, which is what half of all workers earn in this country, and less tax than the people who are in the Tea Party movement. And that's, it seems to me, ought to be our focus. Why are we borrowing money and cutting programs so that people who are taking in literally $2, $3, $4 billion a year can make a deal with the government to pay their taxes 5 or 10 or 40 years from now?
And the federal income tax is not the only tax that hits taxpayers. And as we know, 75% of taxpayers actually pay more in the so-called payroll taxes, the taxes on Social Security and Medicare, than they do in their income tax burden. And so when you factor in what people are paying on these other taxes, there's a large burden that's being distributed across the board here, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, we have something reasonably close to a flat tax until you get to the very, very wealthy class. So what is really being suggested here by Sarah Palin is that people who are retired on fixed incomes, people who are disabled and who can't work, students whose scholarships are taxed, unemployed workers whose unemployment benefits are now taxed under a Reagan-era law, that those people should be taxed, and children with families. I mean, the reason so many people don't pay taxes was the Republican idea that we should give $1,000 credit for each child. And that removed millions and millions of people from the tax rolls while they're raising their children. And apparently Sarah Palin thinks that's a bad idea.
Now, it's very clear that the high-end earners who are in the Tea Party are definitely pursuing self-interest in trying to knock down top tax rates, income tax rates. But the lower earners, anybody making under $75,000 in the Tea Party, are they logically pursuing their own rational interests by the Tea Party agenda?
Well, they think they're pursuing their own interest because the news media that I spent many years in has not done a good job of explaining this, Lawrence. And the reality is that they would be much better off under a system that was truly progressive. They would see that they would have a lower burden, they would have fewer risks, and their families and their children would be better off, and they could save more money to do what they want to do with their lives. So those are fundamental issues that are being ignored here, but you got to remember the news media has done a lousy job of explaining these things.
David Cay Johnston, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and great guide through the tax maze of the IRS. Thank you very much for helping us tonight with this.
Thank you, Lawrence.